So Yae Miko's been out for a couple weeks now, and I really feel like she's one of those characters that people are uncertain about whether they should pull her or not. And I get it, that Primogems are really hard to come by, and getting characters can be very time intensive. It can be expensive depending if you want to spend money on this game. So you definitely shouldn't do it lightly. Now, I did go ahead and pull Yae Miko, and I do have some thoughts about her after a couple weeks. So basically, I'm very briefly going to share with you what I think is good about her, what isn't, and hopefully that will better educate you on whether you should pull for Yae Miko or not in the last few days she's going to go ahead and be here. This isn't necessarily a traditional review. I'm not going to go over everything. I'm kind of just going to give you the total package of was she worth pulling for, and if I had to do it again, would I pull for her, or would I just save my wishes and go for somebody else? To briefly go over the things that she does right, one thing that very stands out about Yae Miko is that she's a very versatile player. And what I mean by that is that you can use her in whatever way you want to. You can have her be of kind of sub DPS where all you do is use her totems and do damage, and then you take her off the field and that's fine. You can totally have her as a main DPS, that's fine. I think she does scale enough, and I think she is strong enough to go ahead and do that. So honestly, she's very versatile in that way, and you can't always say that about characters. Like, some characters are stuck in whatever role it is that they have. Another pro for me for her is that she's very easy to farm for, and this can be kind of a double-edged sword, but I mean that in the sense that she doesn't necessarily have an artifact set that's best in slot for her. And the good thing about that is that some of the different ones you can use, especially the ones that have 18% attack bonus, you might already have something good to slap on her. So honestly, that's a big pro. A very nice thing about her, and this kind of goes together, is she has crit rate as a substat. And to shortly go over the numbers for a second, she has 24% crit rate at 80 plus going on to level 90. That is the equivalent of starting with 98% crit damage if you believe in the whole 1 to 2 value. So honestly, it's crazy. It would be higher than any other character if you scale that kind of way to start with 98% crit damage. Obviously, we're talking about crit rate here, but you have such a head start with her on doing damage. Honestly, it's amazing. It's amazing her having that crit rate as a substat and it being as high as it is. Another thing about her kit is her elemental burst. This thing hits super fucking hard. This thing hits super hard. It's fun to use. Obviously, it goes very well with her kit. So it is a very, very enjoyable part. Honestly, it's a big pro for me. I like it. It hits hard, and I don't even have her leveled up that high. So, so overall, it's been a pretty good experience having her. And this one's kind of a niche thing, but she is the perfect support for Raiden Shogun. Now, I know everybody doesn't have Raiden, but at the same time, she was the most pulled character ever for a single banner. And honestly, by a wide margin. So if you have C1 Raiden, using Yae Miko's burst will give you over half of the resolve stacks. So it's a big deal. She goes perfect with her. I know Raiden kind of had some issues with Beto. This, I feel like, kind of solves that in an inadvertent way. I would still like Beto to work with Raiden, but at the end of the day, this is more about Yae Miko than as opposed to the problems with Raiden Shogun's characters that go with her. Alright, now to talk about the things that I don't like about Yae Miko, I will be very honest with you guys, and this doesn't mean that she's a perfect character, but there wasn't anything in the beginning when I was planning out this video that was very apparent about Yae Miko that I didn't like. There was nothing that stood out to me that was like, oh, okay, that's what's wrong with her. But I did think about it a little bit, and here's kind of a few things that I would say are cons about her. The very first thing is that her kit revolves around her E skill as opposed to her burst. And it's kind of disappointing because her burst hits so hard. And I really like the idea of her being a hard hitting character, but there is no getting around that you're going to have to build around the E skill. With her passive talent that boosts the E skill damage, and just the way that all of her constellations, I don't know if you guys want to go for that, but the way that all of her constellations pretty much revolve around the E skill, it's disappointing because she can't melt and she can't vaporize. So I don't see what the problem is with having her burst hit even harder than it already does, with letting us build more into that. But that's one thing that kind of bothered me. Something that I did see about her E skill that other people were having issues were that I guess the totems take too long for you to get out of the animation with. I didn't really notice that, and now that I know it, it kind of doesn't bother me. I guess it happens sometimes, but I'm not one that's really picky on like doing rotations super fast. Like, it doesn't matter to me. You know, I'm not somebody that's like trying to squeeze every change of character as fast as I can. And honestly, as soon as you put her totems down, considering that they last for 14 seconds apiece, and she gets them back in 4 seconds, I kind of saw that as an extra dodge. I thought that was a neat thing that you can do with her, but honestly, it didn't bother me that much, but it might bother you. Now, one thing I did talk about in the pros is that she can be a little complicated to build, and this one is kind of more of a personal problem on me, like a mistake that I made, but I farmed an entire artifact set for her that ended up not being really good. I farmed an entire set for the Emblem of Severed Fates for her, and then I realized that, like, okay, this isn't actually that good, considering that her kit revolves so much around the E-skill as opposed to the burst. And so I think that for some people, if you're not a hardcore player of the game, it can be difficult to understand or to come to a conclusion on what works well with her and what doesn't. Now, in short, I do think that sets that add 18% attack bonus go well with her, and I think the set that gives you 15% electro damage bonus is good with her, but it can get a little complicated. Honestly, her damage is fine, but I know some people don't like that. They feel like a lot of her damage is held behind constellations. I don't feel that way, but some people might. But I don't think you need to spend money on this character, but you might have a different opinion. I know that there are some people in the public that think that she's not good enough unless you get her constellations. I don't have that opinion. I've never felt that way. I'm probably never going to pull for constellations for her. As nice as it would be, I'm happy with Yae Miko the way that she is. Alright, so the moment of truth. Would I pull for Yae Miko knowing what I know now? Would I do it all over again? Yes. Absolutely yes. I would totally, completely do it. I am very, very happy with Yae Miko in pretty much all aspects of the character. I'm happy with her damage. I'm happy with how she feels. I'm happy with what kind of value she adds to the team. But what you have to remember is just because I'm happy with her does not mean that you will be as well. I am not a free-to-play or a low spender. I have the majority of the characters in this game. So in that sense, it's fine for me to go ahead and pull her. But if you're somebody who doesn't spend money on the game at all, or you spend very little, I cannot honestly, in good conscience, tell you that she is the best way to add value to your team. Now, I do think that the best way to add value to your team is to make you happy. I think at the end of the day, this is a game and it's supposed to be fun. And I don't think that you need to consistently chase characters who are stronger just because they do a lot of damage. I think that, you know, if you're going to spend hours and hours playing this game, you're going to want that basic loop of whatever it is that you're doing to be enjoyable. And I do think Yae Miko does that. But to be honest, in retrospect, because I do have Raiden Shogun, I do have Kokomi, I don't have Kazuha, but I have played as him before, I would rather have the three of those characters than Yae Miko. That's just the honest truth. Now, you might feel differently. If you do, honestly, you're probably not watching this video and you've probably already pulled her. But that's just my opinion. I do think there are other characters, upcoming characters who add more value. And I do think that they are better, but that's up to you. That's up to you if she's fun or not. I know a lot of people don't find Catalyst characters fun in general, but that's just kind of my opinion. I think she's a solid character. I think she's fun to use. You might disagree with that. I don't regret pulling her. You might though. So that's something to think about. It's up to you. Honestly, you have the trial to go ahead and play her. But if you're having questions on whether she's good enough or not, or whether you should pull her, I would not. I would not. If you're uncertain about this character, don't do it. Don't do it. So